I grew up in a little town in southwest Georgia. I recognized Jesus as my Savior when I was 7. Our parents saw to it that we knew Jesus. When I was 12, my dad went into full-time ministry. More of his time went to them, and looking back on it now, a common theme was a feeling of abandonment. Year my dad went into the ministry was also when I was first exposed to adult material. What Satan saw was an opportunity when Dad went into the ministry to try to systematically take each one of us out. And for me, what better way to attract a man toward love than to separate him from the love of a father, and then for me to find love in these images. It's a false substitute. It just doesn't work. When you repeatedly do something that you know is wrong and you can't stop, what comes is a lot of self-hatred and self-contempt. In relationships, it cost me a lot. Sin provided a short-term relief from pain. So it was almost like our narcotic. You get a little high, but on the back end, the payoff is worse. That was something that started when I was 12. I'm 39 now, and from 12 to 32, I don't remember a time where it didn't dominate my life. Christina, I met her in a blind date. I knew that if I was going to be a good husband, I needed to love her real well, and there was no way this life in the shadow was going to be compatible with loving a woman like that. So we got married in 2004, and that year, when we were engaged, we got involved in what began as the Young Families Ministry at Apostles. The church had started a ministry called The Path, and it was dedicated one-on-one men's mentoring. So I had met men like Gerald Lambert, who'd started playing a huge role in my life, Anson Ramsey, Jim Rizzler, guys who really knew who they were, and Jeremy talked me into going to this men's retreat with him. I met the first guy there that I had ever heard of that had gotten freedom, and I thought, well, there's one. I came back from that pretty encouraged that maybe I could change. Christina and I decided to try to have a baby, but 8 weeks later, we lost the baby. I mean, how could this happen? Here I am trying to change. I'm making steps. I'm making investments. We're spending a lot of time in church. I still have this addiction that I can't quite kick, but I feel like maybe it's possible now. An older man in my life who's come to be a great friend and mentor, he looked me in the eye and said, "Anthony, I don't think you have any idea who you are. And I think the only person who can tell you is Jesus." I just took the risk. The next morning I got up early. I'm working for the government, so I had more than a little time on my hands. I start journaling. I would start my time every day with some prayer time. I was really drawn to the humanity of Jesus. There's so much life that flows out of the Bible. I remember the first time that I really heard anything from God in my journal time was, "Anthony, you're my son. I love you." It's hard to explain. But 2 weeks into this, the addiction disappeared. And the only way that I can explain it is I started to believe the things I was hearing. Mostly what I repented of was unbelief. I hear him say, "Anthony, I forgive you. You are not your sin, you're my son." And that really started changing things for me. Over the next year, Christina started noticing, "Hey, Anthony's different." I sat her down and walked her through the whole story. But what I experienced with Christina was no shame or condemnation. And so there's been huge restoration in us as a couple. If guys would realize that their lives depended upon hearing from God regularly, they would do it. I need God like I need air. And in relationships, man, I mean, I've got a great group of guy friends now, and I don't fear men. I don't fear relationships with other women. God is telling a story a lot bigger than maybe I realized. In addiction, I didn't really think about anybody but me. And what God is about is the restoration of humanity. He does it one life at a time. I really dreaded that I was going to be an old man still trapped by this, and that I was going to be living this secret life that nobody knew. I can't tell you how great it is to look in the mirror every morning and like what I see. And what Jesus has done for me has been nothing short of miraculous. He has taken a man who had no idea who he was, told him who he was, and put him back on his feet again. Now it feels like we're running together.